Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Surah Yunus, chapter 10, verse 44. We will only cover one verse today because there is a lot related to this verse which needs to be elaborated. Allah does not do zulm, that is injustice. These are the references, and this is our contact in case there is any query or question regarding this presentation. Recap so far. Through the Quran, we acquire knowledge of the system of Deen and its finer details which aid in understanding Rububiyyat in the universe. The universe was created in 6 stages and the earth was made suitable for the sustenance of man who possesses choice and intent. The law of requital was put in place so that each and every deed of man manifests its outcome. Through the alternation of day and night, time was created to make man aware of his finite physical existence in this world. We should just imagine if there was no day, if there was no night, and all the time we had day, then things would have been quite difficult. And of course, day and night have also other significance. Mankind is one brotherhood, and the aim of the Quran is to help bring all of humanity together after guiding them in the removal of their differences. Iman and Salih deeds have a higher scale in terms of contributing to the development of the human self. The Quran is al-Haq, that is, Quran is sent for constructive purposes. Without the guidance of Allah's book, humans always follow zan, which is doubt, suspicion, conjectures. The Quran cannot be a product of human intellect, as the human mind cannot make decisions without introducing its emotive and intellectual bias. And we can check it as well, because the world which is created around us is based on more or less pure human intellect. We need to approach the Quran with an open mind by applying knowledge, by following it and observing the outcome, and by looking at the history of the rise and fall of nations. The doctrine of utilitarianism. Now, I have included this some excerpts from the Meanings of the Quran, Volume 1 by Allama Pervez, because I thought that in today's reference, this will give us some kind of a context. Let us look at the human social domain and see whether human intellect has been able to devise such a system here which can be profitable for the whole of mankind, i.e., its outcome is khair. Khair is good. Anything which is good for mankind, that is khair. For everyone, using its own empirical technique, human intellect has also stumbled around extensively in search of this, but has not yet been able to succeed in this. That is, through trial and error, human beings have experienced that whatever they are doing, ultimately it ends up in more conflicts and more chaos. The best doctrine it has been able to discover so far is known by the term utilitarianism. According to this doctrine, that act is khair, that is good, as a result of which the maximum number of people gain the maximum benefit, i.e., the greatest good for the greatest number. And this is used as a term. The aim is the benefit of the majority. The question is this: are the ones who will be left out not human beings? They have no answer to this objection. And when we look at these kind of phrases, we should include ourselves in the footprints of those who are in minority, and then see what effect it will have on us. So that is something which we need to think in a very profound manner. It is this very doctrine which personifies democracy. The foundation of democracy is also based on the rule of the majority. What crime has the minority committed that they are handed over into the subjugation of other human beings like themselves, who have acquired a majority by some method or another? The human intellect has not yet been able to devise any such system in which the aspect of shar, and shar over here means evil, something which produces negative effects, does not exist. In its every system, whether it is political or economic, khair and shar exist as an inseparable mixture. And this is taken from the Meanings of the Quran, Volume 1. Now, let us look at the verse 1044. Man is solely responsible in the world, hence should stop looking for excuses. And Quran says, Inna Allaha la yazlimun nasa shay'an walakinna nasa anfusahum yazlimun. Their state is such that when they will be caught in destruction and ruin, then they will say, why is there this zulm on us? We were with this Jamaat, we used to sit in their meetings and we used to listen to them. So it is in continuation of the previous verses, which we covered last time. Be sure Allah does not do zulm to anyone. So over here, Quran has concluded the fact, and it is an evidence-based fact. Be sure Allah does not do zulm to anyone. People do zulm to their own selves and then face the consequences of it. So this is a statement of fact from Allah that nothing bad comes from Allah's side. And what we need to do is that wherever there is zulm, then we should figure it out who did it, who is responsible for that, and what are the causes for that. We have gone through the root of zulm in our previous presentation, so root of zulm will not be covered here, but it will be instructive to go through the Lughat al-Quran. Analyzing it in detail, broadening our vision. Over here, what I've done is I've gone through a number of points of this verse with keeping in view what is happening in our world and what is given in the Quran elsewhere. This verse points to some more interesting issues related to human life. When Allah mentions zulm, it implies the accountability factor in our living. And when we are going through these verses, just to recap, that zulm means everything wrong done in the world, injustice, even if it is done to one human being, and which includes our own self as well. So any injustice, any wrong done anywhere in the world will be covered under zulm. It means that when there is chaos and conflict in our collective life, individuals cause it, then we need to look at the thinking behind these behaviors and question the motives which lead to such decision making. So as students of the Quran, we have to look at the thinking behind deeds, and that is important. That is the deeds. If we can't see the thinking, then we look at the deeds and then draw this inference, go back and deduce that what was the thinking behind this wrong. By making this statement about the reality of human functioning, the Quran has invited us to not jump to this conclusion that this is how it is meant to be. What can I or we do? We are weak and are unable to find a solution for this. Allah has left the world in the hands of pharaohs, and human beings are but helpless. Just lie low and carry on obeying these unjust, that is Zalimeen people. And interesting is, it is in collective terms. It is not one person, Zalim, it is Zalimeen, that these people then come together and as a collectively they create a system. By making this statement, the Quran has beckoned us to look at the rest of the Quran and find out the procedure and formula for getting Allah's help. Though Allah is not physically visible as the pharaohs of the world are, once we start to follow the path defined by Him, then from the way in which things start to fall in place, we can figure out the steps through the signs given in the Quran. This is how we keep getting guided on this path together. Next is just injustice cannot be comprehended fully without understanding this verse in all its aspects. The verse commences with this statement, Inna Allaha la yazlimun nasa shay'an, that Allah does not do zulm, injustice to anyone, i.e. Allah with all His attributes proclaims for the information of the whole of mankind that He does not do zulm on anyone. And the fact is that He cannot. And if we relate mu'mineen to this aspect, mu'mineen cannot do injustice to anyone. They will not do injustice to themselves as well as to others. And this is what this verse means here. Inna Allah, just replace Allah with mu'mineen and then see how the things start falling in place. Then the question which arises in our mind is that who is going to stop this zulm in the world? This is the duty of Ya ayyuhallazina amanu, i.e. Jamaat Mu'mineen. They need to come to terms with their duty after acquiring Iman voluntarily. And because the starting point is to realize it and then voluntarily offer our services to carry out this duty and then come together. So these are the issues which we have to keep in mind when we are going through this verse. This verse also states an evidence-based empirical fact in the religious world. Due to inaccurate beliefs, people think God interferes in human affairs and may even take sides. And this is the worst side of our life, when we start putting things as a responsibility of Allah. And as a result, we avoid our own responsibilities. Firstly, we don't understand our responsibilities. Secondly, we keep doing it. And as a result, zulm keeps spreading in the world. This belief in itself is zulm, as we allow this to get into our heads and then insist on keeping it there as it suits our vested interests. Because essentially, we are shirking our responsibility. We see the things going wrong and we don't stand up against evil. It is important to understand the importance of this law of Allah, that the world of today is functioning on the basis of man-devised laws. Those who run the affairs of the world in different countries follow relative values, which keep changing according to the laws legislated by human beings in whose hands are the reins of power. And this is all evidence-based. If this planet is created for man, as given in verse 45:22, we have gone through it many times, then being equal at a fundamental level, should he be subjected to different laws in different parts of the world? This is a gross injustice right at the basic level against humanity. How many are aware of this fact? Recognition of zulm in the world is the starting point in the right direction. Its exploration is what makes us human. Further reflections. We cannot pick and choose verses from the Quran and give our own interpretations to these unless we wish to deceive our own self deliberately. Everything noted in the Quran is related to our conduct in this life. Here Allah has made a factual statement based on evidence which we can easily verify in our day-to-day life. Here Allah has asked us to investigate every event and incident in our life. That means we will have to be in a very high mode of self-consciousness and consciousness of the world around us. And if the results are destructive, to then figure out which permanent values are violated either through deliberate negligence or from ignorance. So getting the knowledge of the functioning of permanent values is intrinsically linked to it. Stop blaming Allah for your sufferings, period. Resorting to blaming him means that we have failed to understand the law of requital. For example, I've given an example over here. If destruction is caused by a natural event, then do not say Allah sent it. These events are part of the earth's makeup. So essentially what we should do is that I did not take enough precautions and was caught by natural events. Find out what you did wrong to suffer from it. For example, did you build your house in an earthquake-prone area, or floodplains, or hurricane-prone land, or did you fail to build it strong enough, or did you not collect enough data to avoid building in an area affected by natural events? So here lies huge responsibility on the system of Deen, that it should look into every aspect of human life, physical and non-physical. Why did you draw lines on the planet and confine people to disaster-prone areas and did nothing about it? And we can see there's a plenty of land on this planet where people can move. They don't have to live in earthquake-prone areas or in areas which are swept by hurricanes and floods. This is called fasad. Stop supplicating and use your intellect and reasoning to value your physical life and the life of yourself. And this is only possible when we value our life at the level of self, because self is, of course, connected to our physical life. And both are extremely important if we want to make use of our life on this planet. And that is why we need the system of Deen. As far as Allah is concerned, you are only important if you have developed yourself to that level which meets the criterion of the hereafter. I'll go through it again because this is a very important sentence in my view. As far as Allah is concerned, you are only important if you have developed yourself to that level which meets the criterion of the hereafter as given in the Quran. Without a developed self, your value is nothing in the divine balance. You just live at an animalistic level and disappear into oblivion. This is called a state of Jahim and Jahannam. So this is from the Quranic point. I've written it. You does not mean you and me over here. It is addressing the whole of mankind. Further analysis, when Allah declared as part of muhkamat, that is those verses which have established meanings, there is absolutely no two opinions about it, that the law of mukafat controls human affairs. It meant that man has been made responsible for his actions in this life on earth. At a physical level, this is very clear as the law of cause and effect can be seen functioning based on evidence. However, in the case of the law of mukafat, it is a bit difficult to figure out the outcomes of whatever we do because it leaves an impact on ourselves which is invisible initially. Another aspect requiring our attention is that this verse takes us out from the physical domain of our existence as physical beings and makes us highly responsible beings who need to be fully conscious of their thoughts, decisions, deeds, and the role that all these play in our individual and collective lives. After making us fully responsible beings, the Quran then lays down the whole life of the self based on its deeds before us as one continuity which does not break with physical death. And of course, when we go through these verses, we have seen it and it becomes part of our subconscious. It takes time and a lot of practice we need in our daily life and wherever we live. Why do humans resort to zulm? So that is the question which comes to our mind. And despite seeing its effects in the outer world, do not stop doing this. For example, as a system, everyone can see the consequences of the capitalist system on the vast majority of the peoples of the world. And still nothing is done on a large scale to alleviate this. For example, poverty from the world. And we can see even wars, conflicts, civil wars, and all kinds of injustices done across the world. As students of the Quran, we need to come to terms with the truth of our individual and collective reality. For example, verse 2 to 56 sums it up very clearly. La ikraha fi deen qad tabayyana ar-rushdu min al-ghayy faman yakfur bit-taghut wa yu'min billah. So over here, Quran has said that two paths of life need to be recognized clearly. The paths which people follow without the guidance of the Quran and the paths which they are supposed to follow after the guidance of the Quran. And those two are different. And we have to make a choice because life is all about making choice. What's the point of giving us choice if we cannot make use of it? And then a choice made willingly. Accepting Iman includes acquiring insight into the functioning of the human world and the system of Deen, which is free from zulm. It demands concerted efforts by each one of us. It is through sense of duty and higher consciousness we expand our vision. Then the Quran asks us by stating, وَلِتُجْزَى كُلُّ نَفْسٍ بِمَا كَسَبَتْ وَهُمْ لَا يُظْلَمُونَ. Are we aware of the law of requital? And the important point over here in this verse, we have gone through it before, kasabat, that whatever we do has consequences. And whatever we do, we have to make sure that it is not injustice. It is always based on justice. And only Quran gives us the permanent values and the concept of the hereafter. Have we created a world which is aware of its own accountability? If not, then strive to create one. If you do not, then you have failed to bring out most of your latent potentials in this finite life. This is what the Quran tells us. This is zulm against your own self. Firstly, not to be aware of your aim of life. Secondly, not using your hearing, eyes, and expression justly. Thirdly, rejecting haqq when coming across it. Fourthly, not joining with those who strive on this path. And this is a very difficult path because each human being is a bit egoistic. We all want to do things according to our own desires. But when we bring desires within the confines, within the limits of the Quran, then we have a higher purpose in front of us. And that is where we have to overcome our own egoistic tendencies. And it's a very difficult thing. It is challenging. And that is where the gate or the path to Iman opens up. Fifthly, wasting your life in aimless and meaningless pursuits, i.e. deprived of higher consciousness. By addressing the whole of mankind at the self's level for all times, the Quran puts a strong emphasis on the seriousness of our existence and links it to our death. And it says, Kullu nafsin zaikatul maut wa innama tuwaffawna ajurakum yawmal qiyamah. Each self will taste physical death and then be recompensed for what it has done. Throughout the Quran, if we look at it, law of requital runs through frequently in the Quran. That Quran is asking us that again and again that hold yourself responsible for whatever you do. And at the same time, Quran wants us to enjoy this accountability of the self, because through this accountability of our own self, we get higher life. We become, we realize our own importance in this world. In relation to the human self, this verse shows us that there are potentials kept within us which need to be manifested, and then these emerge in the outer world, creating balance and beauty, which is meant to be there as part of the aim of human creation. Failure to do so is a great zulm, and it is due to shirk, because we contaminate our thinking, which human beings do to their own selves, and as a consequence live a miserable life full of fear and huzn. Important thing is, for example, I'll illustrate it with an example, that if I have 20 potentials which I'm supposed to manifest during my life on this planet, And by the time I reach my death, despite having opportunities to, let's say, I could manifest 15 potentials, but I failed to manifest those all 15. Instead, I only manifest 1 or 2 or 3 in relation to my family and to my own benefits. Then essentially, I have done gross zulm to my own self, because I had number of other potentials which I should have manifested, because then these potentials, their manifestation is the one which is going to be my currency for the hereafter. As long as we collectively live under man-devised systems, we live in a state of perpetual zulm in the world, and this means those potentials of ours cannot manifest in this life, which are meant to come out, and we then wait for the next life. And how are they going to come out in the next life? Because these were meant for this life to be manifested. If we do not manifest them in this life, we will not get another opportunity. Next, we share few related verses which bring out some aspects of human psyche related to the issue of zulm noted in this verse 1044. Having seen some of the salient cognitive aspects of this verse, we come to its application in our individual and collective lives. This is how we develop our analytical skills and look at the signs of being on Sirat-e-Mustaqim. Some verses of the Quran are selected to illustrate this point in some detail. This verse is important because just like the law of requital verse 45:22, this verse, once we have understood it, then we should see wherever the word zulm appears, because zulm also means darkness. But wherever it appears, we should see the context in which it is being mentioned over there and what wrong human beings do because of that Quran is drawing to which the Quran is drawing our attention. Not following haqq is zulm, it has consequences. Over here, Quran says, وَمَا ظَلَمْنَهُمْ وَلَكِنْ كَانُوا هُمُ الظَّالِمُونَ. Similar to 1044. Remember, there will be no injustice done unto them. This will be the outcome of that injustice and excess which they had done to their own selves. So from now onwards, we should see every event in the world, which is coming on media or in newspapers, or we hear from others and even on WhatsApp, that what wrong people are doing to each other. And where is good and what is the basis of that good as well. So that kind of a mentality we need to develop and ask others, and we should draw their attention as well. The second verse is very interesting. لَقَدْ جَئْنَكُمْ بِالْحَقِّ وَلَكِنَّ أَكْثَرَكُمْ لِلْحَقِّ كَارِهُونَ. And this is the statement from Allah, who knows the secrets of our hearts, who knows our thought process. Allah will say to them, we sent towards you this code of life, which was absolutely based on haqq and truth, but many of you disliked haqq and opposed it. This punishment is its natural consequence. وَلَكِنَّ أَكْثَرَكُمْ لِلْحَقِّ كَارِهُونَ. And we experience it as well. We have come to the haqq, which is defined in the Quran, and others reject it. Others find it very difficult to accept. Shirk leads to cognitive contamination, which is incapable of understanding Deen. Now, over here, there is a statement from Surah Luqman, which is very interesting. Where qala Luqmanu li abnihi wa huwa ya'izuhu ya bunayya la tushrik billahi inna shirka la zulmun azim. Luqman himself used to obey the commands of Allah and also used to advise his progeny to obey these. Thus he said to his son, whom he used to teach the principles of hikmat, that is wisdom, "O my son, first of all, understand this basic principle on which the whole structure of human thought is established, and it is this, that do not include anyone else in the authority and sovereignty of Allah. Adopt obedience and subjugation to only Allah." Imagine this verse is for one man addressing another man. And there is a lot in this verse for each one of us. Remember, inclusion of someone else in the authority of Allah means that man brings Allah down from his lofty status and raises non-Allah powers higher than their status. This is a gross injustice. Those powers to which man gives divine status are either manifestations of nature or are other themselves human beings. The forces of nature are subjugated for the whole of humanity, and human beings are all equal due to being human. Hence, for a human being to be bound down before another human being or before any force of nature is a degradation of his human eminence. Do not ever do this, my son. So what this verse is saying is that Allah has certain status. He, as a creator, he has got a certain status. He serves as a model for each one of us. If we do not follow the way Quran is asking us to follow its value system, then essentially we are bringing Allah down from his right status to a lower status, and that is zulm. And then also what we do is that we follow other human beings, then we degrade our own self, and as a result we do zulm against ourselves. So it is a zulm at two levels. Firstly, bringing Allah down from his true status. Remember, inclusion of someone else in the authority of Allah means that man brings Allah down from his lofty status. That is the first zulm we do, and raises non-Allah powers higher than their status. This is a gross injustice. So it is an injustice at two levels. Injustices of past life can be rectified. Over here, Quran gives us hope as well, that what has gone in the past, forget about it. Think about it. Realize that once we were wrong, and then follow the right path. Illa man zalama summa badala husnan ba'da su'in fa inni ghafurur rahim. Neither does anyone who has made some mistake unintentionally need to be fearful after he has done tawbah. Tawbah means going back to the place where we took the wrong turn in life, and has adopted a path of balance and harmony in life. And these are very deliberate procedures, deliberate choices we have to make. It is not something otherworldly or in a roundabout way. Whatever we do once after coming to the Quran, it has to be very deliberate and very conscious. This is because there is provision in our law of requital that such a person should be kept protected from the harmful effects of his former error, and his development continues to take place. Hence, if there is the thought in your mind that you had killed a man by mistake and in this way you had committed a crime, so how will this great campaign be carried out? Then take this thought out of your heart too. Now, this is in relation to Hazrat Musa, that when he by mistake killed a person, and he thought that he has done zulm, which was zulm because he unwittingly committed it. He didn't mean to. So over here, Quran says that don't let that become your burden. Don't let it slow you down. Don't make it part of your consciousness that I have done now zulm, so I cannot do any good now. So over here, there is a great instruction for all of us, because from whatever past we have come to this path, now we should forget about that. Of course, realization should be there and we should compare it with our past. But now the issue is about our future, about the world in which we live and how to stop zulm in this world. Interestingly, the Quran predicts human behavior based on their outlook of life in this world. And over here, there is a comparison between al-muttaqeen versus zalimeen. Innahum lan yugnu anka min Allahi shay'an wa inna zalimina ba'duhum awliya'u ba'din wallahu waliyul muttaqeen. These people will be of no use to you when it comes to the law of Allah. These people are also forming groups against you, because those rebelling against the law of Allah become friends and helpers of each other in opposing haqq. But you need not be fearful of this, because for the people who take care of the laws of Allah, their helper and guardian is Allah himself. Now, note the end of the verse, Wallahu waliyul muttaqeen. How do we know that we have collectively achieved this level of development of the self, that we can reach this conclusion that he is our companion? And this is something which is based on science, that when we come together and start working together, remove our differences, then essentially we go to a different stage of our self-development. Also note the collective tense with regard to zulm, for example, zalimeen, collectively people doing injustice. Connection between desires and wahi elucidated. I'll not go through this long verse, and I'll go through the meanings. If these people can respond to your challenge, how can they reply to your challenge? Then the matter will become crystal clear that these people are not looking for truth, merely obeying their emotions and vested interests. Over here, Quran says, Annama yattabi'una ahwahum, that if they are not responding to your message, to your guidance, that is addressing Rasulullah, and now, of course, if we are passing on the message, then we will become the addressees. So what Quran is saying is that they are following their own desires. That's why they don't like the Quran. Emotions are not something bad whose obedience is meant to be criminal, but these should be kept within the obedience of the guidance of Allah. That is, emotions are something which drive us, which give us life. That is how we get things done. So if emotions are brought under the confines of the permanent values, then these emotions get multiplied. They have a higher strength then. Who can be more misguided than the person who, abandoning the guidance of Allah, starts chasing his own emotions? Such kinds of people do not keep emotions and the guidance of Allah at their appropriate place. Because unguided emotions or unbridled emotions are the ones which create zulm in the world. By ignoring the guidance of Allah, they leave their emotions without any control. How can such people find the correct guidance from the direction of Allah? Now, over here, it becomes very clear that those who do not come to the Quran or do not want to follow the pure Quran, they are included in Zalimeen. Inna Allah la yahdil qawm Zalimeen. They are the ones who are the cause of all the problems in the world. So these are actually instructive verses for us, and we have to develop our thought process, our cognition on these lines. Recognizing and accepting error of our judgment precedes seeking of protection, sign of being under protection. Qala rabbi inni zalamtu nafsi faghfirli faghfara lahu innahu huwal ghafurur rahim. Musa said, "Oh my Rabb, I've done a great injustice to my own self. Make such an arrangement for me that I remain protected from the harmful effects of this." Now, this verse, we should keep it in mind that it is mentioning the same event in which Hazrat Musa killed a man. It was not my intention to kill him. I just wished to help a victim. It just happened by chance. Hence, his Rabb did this, that his self should remain protected from the harmful effect of this mistake. The truth is that there is provision for this in the law of requital of Allah, that if some mistake is committed by someone in error and he is remorseful with its guilt, then by removing its harmful effects, the process of his self's development can be maintained. And it's very interesting, these two attributes over here, Al-Ghafurur Rahim, that he got protection and his nourishment did not stop and he kept developing his own self. And that is why when he went back to Pharaoh, and Pharaoh said that you killed our man, and he said that yes, it was by mistake. But now the question is, are you going to allow Bani Israel to or set them free or not? Note two divine attributes of Huwal Ghafurur Rahim at the end of the verse, first protection and then continuation of the self's development. Zulm comes in all forms and shapes. We need to become aware of all its guises. وَمَنْ أَظْلَمُ مِمَّنْ افْتَرَى عَلَى اللَّهِ كَذِبًا أَوْ كَذَّبَ بِآيَاتِهِ إِنَّهُ لَا يُفْلِحُ الظَّالِمُونَ. Just think, who can be more unjust than the one who invents something from his own side and attributes it to Allah? Over here, there is a very important and intricate statement of the Quran that we should be very, very cautious that do not attribute anything to the Quran or to Allah unless we are 100% sure about it. In the same way, who can be more unjust than the one who falsifies the true laws of Allah? And here people have created books, written books after books, as if these are the commands from Allah. Both of these are unjust, and it becomes zulm. One presents a lie by making it appear to be truth, and this one declares the truth to be a lie. Neither of these can ever succeed. Note, we must be very careful in expressing any opinion or belief which is not supported by the Quran. It is declared as qazab, which is declared as zulm, i.e. a crime, and leads to degradation of ourselves. It can also misguide others, a serious crime in the book of Allah. Not recognizing the need for rububiyat. وَمَنْ أَظْلَمُ مِمَّنْ ذُكِّرَ بِآيَاتِ رَبِّهِ ثُمَّ أَعْرَضَ عَنْهَا إِنَّا مِنَ الْمُجْرِمِينَ مُنْتَقِمُونَ. You reflect yourselves that who can be a bigger zalim or unjust one, that the law of Allah is presented before him, he then turns his face away. Our law of requital will definitely punish these people for their wrong deeds. The Quran here is not referring to Allah's signs in general. The issue of rububiyat is specifically highlighted here. Bi-ayati rabbihi. These people do not look at the state of the world around them and all the injustice which goes on and appear to be totally oblivious of it. What is the difference between a human being not taking notice of yatim and miskin and a herd of cattle and a flock of sheep? The Quran has declared them to be criminals. This needs us to pause and profoundly reflect. We need to understand the issue of accountability in the human world. And over here, I've quoted a verse from related to Hazrat Nuh wa qawma Nuhim min qablu innahum kanu hum azlama wa taga. So zulm and taga are both interlinked over here, because injustices then lead to more injustices, and as a result, the world is engulfed under chaos and conflict. And before this, the nation of Nuh, these nations got destroyed because these used to transgress the laws of Allah and used to let loose tyranny and cruelty toward the weak. Here, zulm is co-stated with taga. People who do injustice then reach a stage where they cross all bounds. And we are seeing this happening in our world. This is due to not holding themselves to any accountability. This is the reason that the Quran states, "Ta'muruna bil ma'rufi wa tanhauna anil munkar." So we are supposed to check others. We are not supposed to take their videos and then exploit them, and then what we do is blackmail them. We are supposed to stop people from doing wrong, warning them, and establish a society in which doing wrong becomes difficult in the first instance. Because a society based on justice creates peace and tranquility and removes fear. This helps to maintain balance in a society. Evil needs to know that it will be opposed if it raises its head. Formula of amanu wa amilu salihate is reiterated, brought out in relation to zalimeen. And over here, Quran says, وَأَمَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ فَيُوَفِّيهِمْ أُجُورَهُمْ وَاللَّهُ لَا يُحِبُّ الظَّالِمِينَ. In contrast to them, those people who have conviction in the truth of these laws and act on a defined potential enhancing program, they are given full recompense for their efforts. There is not an iota of reduction in this. The reality is that Allah simply does not approve of those who diminish the rights of anyone. In fact, in an emotive sense, people start relating la yuhibbu to human beings or human emotions. Over here, Quran itself is explaining its meanings by saying amanu wa amilu salihate, that if you are not doing this amanu wa amilu salihate, then you are falling in the category of zalimeen. Two preconditions are noted here for the acquisition of all those benefits which Allah has reiterated throughout the Quran, amanu wa amilu salihate. Understanding this combination holds the key to understanding the Quran and the issue of the development of the self. A great evidence based on conduct which we witness in the world of 2022. وَكَذَلِكَ نُوَلِّي بَعْضَ الظَّالِمِينَ بَعْضًا بِمَا كَانُوا يَكْسِبُونَ. In this way, we combine the various parties of rebellious people on account of their shared crime with each other. And in this way, in order to face the punishment for their conduct, they become one united entity. Because they all come together. Gradually, the society becomes more or less evil in every respect, and they don't consider injustice, anything wrong with injustice. A great psychological reality about human behavior and conduct is presented here in a very succinct and eloquent way by Allah. Here the phrase, birds of a feather flock together fits. We see this being demonstrated across the world. Why do human beings behave like that? And that is the question we should keep it in mind when we are going through these verses and try to find out the reasons behind it. In fact, of those who claim to have come to the Quran, why do so many not wish to be united with Mu'mineen? What holds them back from having an affinity towards Mu'mineen? We need to come to grips with this side of the human psyche. And this is something which we need to question ourselves as well continuously and put these questions to others as well. Because it is about solving human problems. It is about recognizing zulm in the first place and then taking steps in the light of the Quran to remove it. And if evil is united, if Zalimeen are united, then Mu'mineen have to be united. Otherwise, there's not enough force to counter it. All meaningless rituals and customs which distract and divert from the real aim of life are included in zulm. أَجَعَلْتُمْ سِقْيَاطَ الْحَجِّ وَإِمَارَةَ الْمَسْجِدِ الْحَرَامِ كَمَنْ آمَنَ بِاللَّهِ وَالْيَوْمِ الْآخِرِ وَجَاهَدَ فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ لَا يَسْتَوُونَ عِندَ اللَّهِ وَاللَّهُ لَا يَهْدِي الْقَوْمَ الظَّالِمِينَ. I included this verse towards the end because I thought this is something very interesting for all of us to see what is going on in the world of religion. Why do you think that by providing water stalls for pilgrims and by carrying out tasks within the precincts of the Kaaba, man becomes equivalent to that individual who has iman in the laws of Allah and the life of the hereafter and strives continuously for the establishment and strengthening of the divine system? And the Quran did not leave it there. You can think whatever you like in your own mind. According to the divine criterion, they can never be equal because they are not recognizing their responsibility. They are distracted by easy job. Because cleaning these places and doing something good over there is not equivalent of countering zulm. And we cannot counter zulm unless we have iman and we do amilus salihate and come together. And these are challenging tasks. Remember, the law of Mashiach of Allah never shows the path of success to such people who do not refrain from zulm. And by obeying these kind of charitable tasks, deceive themselves that we have done a great deed, and it slows us down. And we move away from our own responsibility as mu'mineen if we claim to be mu'mineen. The true deed is the establishment of that system through which zulm disappears from the world. So we can see that despite all these rituals, the zulm is increasing in the world. The evil is spreading everywhere. Why? Because these are distractions. These are false kind of complacency which human beings develop and do not take responsibility for their action. And that is why they do not understand the Quran. They go through these verses day and night, but still they don't understand it. Further analysis of the verse 1044. We have seen that the Quran has made absolutely clear that in the human world, Allah functions through His laws, and it is the Jamaat-e-Mu'mineen which operates on His behalf. Hence, all injustices and evils are created by those human beings and hands which do not follow His guidance. In the same way, all that is called good within the man-devised systems is also the product of human hands. Now, the question which comes before us is that what is called good in the man-devised unjust system? Should we relate this to Allah? And if we do, then what is the consequence of this? How does this affect our psyche? And this is something which we have to be very aware of it, because we have seen that if the system itself is wrong, then we must not relate any of its benefits towards Allah. Never say that it is from Allah, because this becomes a distraction. And as a result, it weakens our resolve, because we start thinking, it is okay, I'm getting benefit from this system. Why should I put in my best? And that is the thing which we should keep it in mind. And this verse is pointing to that all man-devised systems are a collection of zalimeen, because if one man is treated unjustly, even at the level of his thought, then that system is of zalimeen. This verse has made it clear to us by stating, Inna Allaha la yazlimun nasa shay'an walakinna nasa anfusahum yazlimun. We have looked at the verse which states that if we are not striving on the path defined by Wahi for the system of Deen, which is the only system which ensures good for the whole of mankind, then we are included in this al-qawm al-zalimeen. This point needs further reflection. We have seen that any contamination of our thought processes leads to affecting our conduct and character in the physical world. If we have decided to strive on the path of Deen, then we need to have ourselves developed exactly the way the Quran has guided us in this regard. And we are making this effort on this platform. This whole issue is based on the precise concept of Allah as detailed in the Quran by Allah Himself. If our self does not accept Iman in the precise concept of Allah, then this self cannot develop on those lines, and as a consequence, it will not get power from Allah, as stated in these two verses, as the formula becomes contaminated. For example, if we start to relate our so-called successes under the Iblisi system to Allah and become contented with this, then essentially we fail to grasp the need for the system of Deen. And this is the issue I have with all these rituals, because these rituals are distractions. They give false hope of the hereafter. And we know, those who are the students of the Quran, that these distractions will never ever take us towards the system of Deen. We have seen how the Quran emphasizes the existence of only two parties in the world, the party of Allah and the party of Shaitan. If the system is created by Shaitan, then we need to recognize every part of it. And despite being beneficiaries of it, we should not cognitively relate to it. This recognition is part of our self-developmental process. Now, this places us far higher than our previous state of self-development, because this is where we have to come to grips with this statement, which is given in verse 1044. In coming to grips with this verse, we come to understand the extent and scope of our human freedom, and then the question what this freedom means in shaping our world. We will continue to explore it as we go through the rest of the Quran. Now, over here, what I've done is I've taken some salient points and examples on Zulm from Tabweebul Quran. There's a lot over there, so whoever can read Urdu, they should go through it. Usurping the possessions of orphans. In fact, creating orphans in the first place is zulm in itself. Usurping others' property by deceit, changing the commands of Wahi and replacing these with something else. All these books of Ahadith come under it. Thinking of worldly benefits as the sole aim of life, the result is ruin, thinking that the life ends with death. Living an easy life dependent on the hard work of others. Opposing the invitation of the Quran. Keeping on following one's own emotions, which is unbridled emotions outside the Quran. Accepting the subjugation of non-Allah forces and being contented with that. If it is a transitory phase which we are going through, then that Quran recognizes that, but our efforts should continue towards the system of Deen. Disobeying some common law. Even in man-made system, we should not create any issue, because if we see that the law is for keeping that stability within a society, then we should stay within that. And of course, we should make an effort to change the law in itself if it is unjust. Hiding evidence, going against or transgressing the laws of Allah, taking more than the original loan, riba. Riba is a very big issue, and hopefully we will have a presentation on this. Arresting or detaining someone innocent, and this is going on in the world everywhere. Transgression of the limits defined by Allah, those who do not establish the system according to the laws of Allah, in common daily social interactions behaving carelessly, refusing to accept the law of requital. Hypocrisy is zulm. Those who do zulm to others, a severe punishment for them. Ridiculing the signs of Allah. Ridiculing does not only mean by words. In our own heart, if we have contempt against the Quran, then we are actually harming our own selves. That means we are shutting the door of ever coming towards the guidance of Allah. Giving punishment greater than the crime. Hindering others from the path of Allah. Having 99 ewes and snatching one from a poor person. This is a very interesting story which is noted in this verse in relation to Hazrat Dawood. It's worth going through it. Wrong ideology of life. See the examples of Pharaoh, people of Saba, people of Tamud, people of Shoaib, people of Lut, Bani Israel, and all these stories give us some aspect of zulm to which the Quran has drawn our attention. And this is from Tabweebul Quran by Allama Pervez. Now, over here, I have put some pictures together, which I thought with which I will conclude today's presentation. Finally, our word in 2022, some tiny glimpses of zulm. Long march of justice and against corruption. This has recently taken place in Pakistan, and we can see over there that even the laws which are created by themselves, their own constitution, they are going against it, and all the evil forces, which are blatantly evil, they are becoming exposed. Next is slums in Africa and across the world need our attention. So this is another kind of zulm. We should keep it in mind all the time. Looking for water in 2022. It's so easy to solve this problem. Human beings don't have to look for drinking water, and for that it should be, if it can be provided through water taps and a proper water supply system in one part of the world, why it can't be provided in another part of the world? Afghanistan, what is their fault? And this is going on since 1979. And these Muslim countries, so-called, are part of creating this mess in that part of the world, and they are all human beings. And this is the this is something which we need to think very hard. Abu Ghraib, this happens across the world on a daily basis. I just put this picture here that what is going on in prisons and how people are locked up over there without any chance of getting any reformation. Syria, what is their crime? And it is still going on. Yemen, not far from where people do Umrah and Hajj, and we all know it. And then is Palestine still looking for justice? So are people, so are poor human beings in the world. And we can, we can talk of Kashmir, and we can talk of Chechnya, and all Rohingya Muslims and Muslims in China. And actually, the picture is bigger. It's not just about Muslims. It is about human beings as a whole. Quran, when talks of An-Nas, mankind, it includes everyone on this planet. And imprisoned by the UK government for exposing the war crimes. And this is supposed to be the cradle of democracy. And this is Julian Assange. The homeless states of America. America should not have any homeless. Why do they have homeless? It is not that they don't see it. They deliberately create it. They are telling the middle class and others that you can become homeless if you do not follow what we are asking you to follow. And then is Guantanamo prison, locked up without trial, own created justice system cannot even provide justice. And Qatar World Cup, Qatar opening ceremony commenced with recitation from the Quran. And the Quran says, Labu wa lahwun. That is, they think that it is support and it is just for entertainment. This word is created. And just see how much money has been spent over there. And from where are they getting the money? From the natural resources provided by Allah. And then, of course, Quran says, Inna Allaha la yazlimun nasa shay'in walakinna nasa anfusahum yazlimun. Each of these pictures and billions of other pictures represent human zulm in this world. And thanks for your time and for sharing this today. Please feel free to share it with your contacts. You may like to subscribe for future talks related to the Quranic system of Deen. Thank you very much.